It can take sometimes more than 6 months to go from sale agreed to closed and completion in Ireland, and that's just nuts. So if you've just gone sale agreed, or perhaps you're house hunting and you want to know what happens next after you've gone sale agreed in Ireland and wondering why it takes so long to complete a sale in Ireland, and perhaps you want to avoid some of the pitfalls that I have here, this video is for you. I have like 20 years experience working in property. I've worked on the sale side, the buy side, commercial, residential, for banks, for large companies, and I have seen the nightmares that happen when buying a property, and sometimes those nightmares happen after you've gone sale agreed. I have closed deals in a matter of 1 to 2 weeks, and in some cases it's taken more than a year. So I've seen everything that can happen. You're all happy, your bid has been accepted, but what happens next? What can you expect and what mistakes can you actually avoid? In this video, I'm going to highlight 4 major areas that really slow down a sale from being completed. When you go sale agreed and your bid is accepted, you will be asked by the agent for a booking deposit, your solicitor's details and your surveyor's details. I think it's actually best to have your solicitor and your surveyor already lined up and arranged, just so you can keep the ball rolling. I always think it's a good idea to actually include your solicitor's details and your surveyor's name along with your bid when you make it, because this shows you're ready to close. Generally speaking, a booking deposit will range from anywhere from about 5k up to about 50k. It depends on the value of the property, but generally you're looking at about 1 to 2% of the value of the property for your booking deposit, and most agents round this up a little bit. This booking deposit is fully refundable, meaning that you can walk away at any time until contracts are signed. And this leads to one of the biggest and worst nightmares that happen in Irish property, the booking deposit, because it is fully refundable. So after you've gone sale agreed, either party, either the seller or buyer, can pull out at any time in Ireland because your bid is not binding. If the buyer pulls out, the seller has to remarket the property or go back to underbidders. This leads to a lost time as well as lost money. If the seller pulls out, the buyer is out of pocket for their legal fees as well as their surveyor's costs, and potentially they may have missed out on bidding on other properties. I actually believe that this can be solved by using smart contracts that bind people into the sale. They're not legally bound to the actual property, but are smart contracts binding the seller and buyer together. If the buyer pulls out, the seller can get a percentage of that booking deposit. If the seller pulls out, then the buyer would be able to recover some of their costs in terms of legal work and their surveyor's costs as well. And I think this benefits both parties, and I think it's something that will have to be looked at and introduced in the near future. It's something I want to work towards to actually introducing, but it is a major pitfall right now about going sale agreed in Ireland. So the next major pitfall we have in Ireland is the survey. In Ireland, like most other countries, when it comes to buying a property, it is buyer beware. Hence, the buyer needs to do their due diligence before they put in that bid. So it is always important when you're buying a property to do your due diligence before you buy a property. However, with the sale agreed process in Ireland, it allows successful bidders to do their due diligence of the property after their bid has been accepted. And I get this. There's no point in spending money on legal or surveyors if you can walk away at any stage after the sale agreed process. So there's no point in spending that money up front when you can walk away. And this leads to lots of people pulling out of sales after a structural survey has been done or after any legal issues may arise. If people did do their due diligence before putting in a bid, most of the collapsed sales that we see could actually be avoided. But there's no incentive for buyers to do any due diligence beforehand. So why would they bother getting a structural survey or doing any legal due diligence if they can walk away at any stage? And this effectively means when any issues come about from a structural report or any legal issues come about, the buyer gets cold feet and walks away. In a lot of cases, the structural surveys are actually written in such a way that they're more scary than they actually really are. And I get calls from friends all the time. They've got a report back, it's flagged a few issues, and they ask me this question. This question always comes up: can I get a price reduction because these issues have been flagged within this report? Generally, my response will include the following questions. How competitive was the bidding process? Is there someone out there that is ready to come back in very quickly if you show signs of cold feet? Are these new issues that are being highlighted in the report, or could you see them at the viewing? I.e., was there big damp spots in the ceiling, or was there cracks over doors? If the report is only highlighting issues that everyone could have seen at the viewing, your bid should have reflected those issues, and going back in now asking for a price reduction is potentially very risky. However, if the report is highlighting issues that no one would have known about during the bidding process, or no one would have known about it during viewings, then potentially you can go back and look for a price reduction, because then the owner becomes aware of these issues, the agent becomes aware of these issues, and it's more risky for them to go back to the market as well. However, back to this point, the lack of due diligence at the very start, before the bidding process actually takes place, leads to so many people actually pulling out due to structural issues. And sometimes they're not even that bad, but sometimes the bank won't lend on them either. There are many that believe that surveys should be completed by the owners and included within the marketing package when the property is being sold. But this is like asking the seller to not paint their property in the best light. It goes against all basic marketing and sales principle, but it is kind of common on the commercial side. And it's not just a marketing issue, it's also an insurance issue. When survey reports are completed, the paying client, i.e. in this case would be the owner, are the only ones who can rely on it. Therefore, a buyer cannot fully rely on a survey that they haven't paid for. And this brings up an issue. While a buyer might actually trust the report, they can't rely on it if something goes wrong, i.e. they can't sue the surveyor if something goes wrong, or they were misled within that report. Pre-sale surveys do happen in other countries, but in most cases the buyer does read them. They cannot rely on them totally, and the buyer has to do their own due diligence and carry out their own survey as well, because it's all part of their own due diligence. But it gives them a little bit of flavour of what is likely going to be highlighted within any structural survey that they actually go and pay for as well. So balancing the interest of the seller and providing the right information for the buyer to make an informed decision is really key. Finding the balance is important, but at the moment surveys after going sale agreed are causing a huge amount of sales to actually collapse all the time. So providing more information in advance is probably key to resolving this. But until things change, if you are looking to bid on a property, try to do a little bit of due diligence, educate yourself on the property, look for telltale signs in regards to major issues, and factor them in to reflect your bid, to account for any risks of structural issues within the property. Any property professional will tell you that due diligence is one of the most important elements of buying property. The next mind-melting thing buyers face when dealing with buying a property and going sale agreed is actually the legal process and legal issues that come about after you've gone sale agreed and you're trying to buy a property in Ireland. It's an archaic system and we're all suffering through it at the moment. There are a few key elements to look out for when you are bidding on a property, and perhaps you can use some of these to your advantage if you discover them and try and negotiate better terms for yourself. The first one is the property in probate, lost title? Is there going to be management company issues, planning or building certs? Are they missing, or are they with the property? These issues coupled with a slow legal process can really delay matters in terms of closing a sale out. There is a move to have contracts for sale ready before placing a property on the market, but this is really having contracts ready. You still could run into issues in regards to missing title, planning certs missing, or delay because of probate or management companies. The contract being ready won't resolve those issues. And it's important to understand the difference between ready to sell and the ability to actually close on a property. It's not always possible for the seller to have absolutely everything ready when they want to place the property on the market. A seller can get a grant of probate, but they're not always able to get the final probate approved until they've actually gone sale agreed and they know the value of that property, because revenue won't confirm the final grant of probate until they know exactly what the property is being sold for and they know what taxes are liable within the estate. Hence, in a lot of cases, you kind of have to go sale agreed before you can actually go and get your final probate in some cases. Other items such as missing title, planning certs missing, maps not aligning can all really delay the sale and legal process. And it's a good idea to ask the agent up front, Does the property have the correct title? Does it comply with planning? Or are any of these things missing before you actually make your bid? Because if any of them are missing, you are going to have to prepare yourself for a much longer closing. And you can factor that into your bid, as well as letting the agent know that you are able to allow for that timing in terms of closing, and you're not going to run away because of this issue. If you're buying a property and it's within a management block, you may also face delays due to the management company. As part of going sale agreed, the management company is required to answer a number of legal questions on the property in terms of sinking fund, service charge, and general kind of questions about how the block is managed. In most cases, generally speaking, management companies are underpaid and understaffed. So when they get these questions in from solicitors, they generally only want to answer them once, and they only want to answer them when the property is ready to actually close. So getting all that information up front is quite a hard task for solicitors and owners, particularly if they have to ask twice. But that trend is starting to get better. Management companies are getting better at answering these questions from solicitors, but in some cases it can take a few months to get some of these answers back. So before we move on to the final one, we still have to deal with how solicitors communicate with each other. Files can be left on desks or not opened for a number of weeks, and in a lot of cases they don't respond to questions until they've answered all of the questions or all of the queries, and therefore perhaps 10 queries have been flagged and only one remains outstanding, and it could be very small, but that could delay the whole process. And sometimes I think better communication can actually move things a lot faster, and it is very frustrating, I think, for both seller and for buyer. So in terms of the structures and how things work, when everything is ready in terms of solicitors and both sides are happy and the banks are also happy, contracts can be signed. At that stage, the buyer will be responsible for a 10% deposit, and now they are locked in. So the end is in sight, contracts are signed. Most contracts will allow for at least about a 4-week closing period, but that only works if everything is ready. You may still have to wait for the final grant of probate, or banks might be slower, and worse still, the last one on this list, the owner or the seller's timeline. And this can cause a real issue. Sometimes they're looking to buy another house and they're part of a chain, so you need another sale to go through before they can actually move out. Sometimes the seller doesn't want to leave before Christmas. They want one final Christmas there, or perhaps they're just not bothered moving out till the new year. There's many reasons why the seller can actually delay things and frustrate things majorly. So if you want to avoid a long closing and not face any of these issues that we've flagged here, and there's potentially other issues that you might see as well, but it all goes back to the basic principle of good due diligence at the very start before you put in your bid. I know on residential side it's a little bit harder to get everything up front in terms of a legal pack as well as the structural issues, but ask, is there any legal issues with the property? Is there any structural issues with the property? Look around the property, see if there's any telltale signs of any structural issues. Have a look on the planning side of things. Does it have proper planning in terms of what's being built, and ask what documents might be missing here. So try do as much due diligence as you possibly can. Ask as well about the seller's timeline. Don't think the sales process should take months and months for a property to close. I think 4 weeks should be long enough. I even think actually even less than that is all that's really needed if we move towards tech enabling the legal process to speed up matters. I hope in 10 years time I'm working on a project, and I hope in 10 years time that I'm sitting around having a coffee with people and going, Jesus, you remember back in 2024 it took nearly 6 months or longer to close a sale? And I want those people sitting around that table laugh at me and not believe me that actually was the case, because I think things can get a lot better with tech. Right now I'm working on a new startup called PropGen that plans to deal with a lot of the issues that we've just talked about in this video. We are talking to agents at the moment, but in the next few months we want to be kind of reaching out to buyers and sellers. Please leave any of your thoughts in regards to how we can improve the sales process or the property market in Ireland in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you, or even reach out to me directly as well. If you are interested in learning how we can continue to improve the housing market, make sure you subscribe to this channel and give this video a like. Help the channel out. As always, thanks for watching.